What is up, guys? It's me, Waifu Selector, still the only fair human on Earth, even in 2025. And here we are, still very early in the year, and we've spoken about Nintendo, Xbox, and what both of them could be doing going forward. So appropriately, it's PlayStation's turn. I'm gonna take a look at what 2025 may look like for PlayStation in particular. But alongside that, we also have some recent news about more internally canceled unannounced games. So I will get to that too later in the video, as it ties into some of what I already have to say. But make no mistake, despite producing one of the most high-profile failures in gaming history last year with Concord, PlayStation still remains in strong positioning with a lot of potential. Not unbreakable, infallible positioning, but it's still pretty strong. So I just want to talk about what we might see from PlayStation, the general ethos of their brand going forward, and the effect Concord may have on some of their releases, as well as recent game cancellations. As always, if you end up enjoying the video, don't forget to give a thumbs up and consider subscribing. But for now, let's talk PlayStation in 2025. So I feel it's appropriate to start with things we know for certain are happening, and nothing is quite as sure a thing as Ghost of Yotei, the long-awaited sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. It's finally happening. We have no hard date just yet, but it is releasing in 2025 according to the reveal trailer. And this is in line with PlayStation saying they'd have a major single-player release every year starting in 2025. After they kinda used 2024 for other things like live service, partnerships, and smaller releases. But back to Ghost of Yotei. This is obviously a huge drop. It will be one of the biggest of the year. Well, nothing's really gonna matter if GTA 6 does indeed release on time this year, but to those who can be bothered to entertain anything else, Ghost of Yotei will be a big point of discussion. And I think this game took a little bit longer to arrive than a lot of us expected, because I'd say for about 2 years now, we've been expecting to hear about or see a Ghost of Tsushima sequel, but it wasn't until now, 5 years later, that we finally will get it. But you take the time you need, and hopefully the extra time is apparent when we get to boot up the game. I'm excited for Ghost. I thought the first game was great, and I think it's reasonable to assume that this will be a mostly well-received game, which will make it a strong drop for PlayStation this year. And that's good that that's almost guaranteed, because the reception to some other games are far more uncertain. Speaking of uncertain, there's also Death Stranding 2 on the beach. And I don't think this game plays into uncertainty just because the first game was quite polarizing with its gameplay. No, I just questioned including it in this video because it's not a first-party IP. Kojima Productions fully owns Death Stranding, and so this is just a partnership between Kojima Productions and PlayStation. So Death Stranding 2 will likely just be a timed exclusive for PlayStation, not that that isn't significant or relevant to PlayStation's year, because anyone who wants to play DS2 immediately will have to do so on PS5. I mean, these kinds of deals were what carried PlayStation through most of last year: Stellar Blade, Rise of the Ronin, and Black Myth Wukong, although that was said not to be an exclusivity deal. Either way though, it wasn't on Xbox. So yeah, Death Stranding 2 will be big for PlayStation this year, but it isn't really to be fully associated with them. Regardless, I'm excited for this game. I really enjoyed the first one. Can't wait to see what crazy nonsense is happening in this one. There's already weird stuff in the trailers, and again, no hard date for this, but it is coming this year. And as for the reception, I think it's hard to guess at, because for all we know, Kojima may make this game play completely differently from the first one. But I think the game has interest and an audience, so even if it's polarizing like the first game, I think it'll do well enough. But okay, now let's talk about the scary part, some iffier things. Let's talk multiplayer and live service. I know you might not like it because we've been told not to like it, and honestly, that sentiment makes it riskier and riskier for PlayStation every day unless we eventually reach a tipping point. But regardless, PlayStation is still doing this. The live service plan continues despite what any of us may have to say, at least for now. And here's the thing, I don't think any of the games I'm about to talk about are actually confirmed to be coming this year, but they're all possible to varying degrees. The first and most likely to release this year is Fair Games. Remember this? About a year and a half ago, PlayStation dropped a trailer for this live service multiplayer heist game with very little information and no gameplay. The entire thing was a CG cinematic trailer, and there was never a follow-up trailer or anything. This game received very little fanfare from those who remember it, but most people just don't remember it. And Sony doesn't seem eager to remind anyone. I can also say personally, I wasn't very interested in it. A heist game doesn't sound very cool to me, and aesthetically it looked kind of plain. Very real world for the most part, a little bit of near future stuff, not really something that speaks to me. But if it looks okay when we see gameplay eventually, I'll give it a try at least. The most recent thing I've heard about Fair Games was after the Concord debacle. I guess extensive new playtesting and surveys were popping up in regard to Fair Games, presumably in a panic to prevent another Concord from happening, which Fair Games very well may end up being, unfortunately. But these playtests and surveys could indicate a full change in direction for the game for all we know. Not that we'd have anything to compare it to though, but it could possibly result in a better and more well-liked game. I do actually expect Fair Games to come out this year, but if it is in fact shifting direction of the entire project, then maybe not. But I'd give it about an 80% chance to be coming this year. Either way, I think its chances of survival upon launch are slim at best. Now, still on live service but maybe less likely to release, we've got the Horizon multiplayer game. I'll just call it Horizon Online for now because I don't think it has a name yet. But yes, as we know, after Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, both a third mainline entry and a multiplayer game are in development, with the multiplayer game coming first, possibly even sometime this year, although that's completely unconfirmed and pure speculation by me. And we don't know much about Horizon Online. All we had was some leaked screenshots of a pre-alpha build, and that was maybe a year or two ago. I can't exactly remember. It was a long time ago at this point. Through those screenshots, however, we could see a drastically different art style than Horizon typically has, a far more cartoonish look, which makes a lot of sense because a multiplayer game that presumably would continue to rapidly have content added to it and support a nice online infrastructure, all while simultaneously looking like Horizon Forbidden West, is insanity. For what that would cost, the only developer / publisher that I would think could pull that off with a guarantee of making their money back is someone like Rockstar and Take-Two. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense for Horizon Online to go with a more sustainable art style, you know? It's just that the only look we've gotten so far was blurry pre-alpha stuff, not nearly finished. So we can't yet really tell if the art style of the game will be as pretty and vibrant as Horizon typically is, but in its own way, you know? As far as gameplay goes, we can still only guess, obviously, but I think we're all expecting something along the lines of Monster Hunter. Probably not a one-for-one ripoff, but something in the genre possibly. Regardless, Forbidden West released in 2022, the DLC was in 2023, the Zero Dawn remaster was last year, and I don't think it's outlandish to consider they might just want to keep the ball rolling with Horizon Online in 2025. But we do have to consider some recent news. While the Jim Ryan era live service plan was set in motion and is still going, we might have been given a glimpse into its direction just a bit, because we recently learned that PlayStation canceled 2 previously unannounced live service games. One is a still unknown and unnamed game from Bend Studios, who developed Days Gone, remember them? And the other game was a God of War live service game by Bluepoint Studios? What? What the hell? What is that? How was the decision to start making that made, I wonder? Listen, I don't mind live service games, I'm not in that crowd. I just hope they're good and fun games when I play them. And something like a Horizon multiplayer game sounds like it can be good. But God of War? I don't even know what that would be, and I don't want it. Like what? Is it gonna be like the old God of War Ascension multiplayer? Cause I don't want that. God of War live service just seems like a terrible idea even on paper. And then to have Bluepoint doing it, of all people? If you don't know, Bluepoint did the Shadow of the Colossus and Demon Souls remakes. They're a great remake studio for single player projects, but what in the hell would they know about making an all original live service game? This whole thing just seemed ill-advised. Everyone had been wondering what Bluepoint was working on for a while now, hoping for something like a Bloodborne remake, easy slam dunk, you know? But no, they were doing this. Either way now, this odd God of War game and whatever Bend was working on have been scrapped. And Concord, being the massive failure that it was, I think has something to do with everything going on at PlayStation currently. So while obviously funds had to be reevaluated after Concord, production quality likely also needed to be reevaluated, like we talked about with Fair Games. And that ultimately could have resulted in these 2 unannounced games being cancelled. You know, they might have gave them both another once over and said, these are not gonna come out good, these are not gonna be well received, cut them. But what does this mean for the overall live service plan? Well, I don't think it'll stop anytime soon, but I think PlayStation will be slowing down on the whole hog approach. And if we're lucky, possibly even only pursuing it when it's a game one of their studios is really passionate about. But that would still happen a little later down the line because there are things that are already in motion. And as far as the games that are still coming go, this might, and I repeat might, actually bode well for them. Because if they did undergo some kind of quality reevaluation, it would seem that the games that we're still getting passed, which would theoretically mean pretty good games. However, on the other end, it could be as simple as the production being in too deep, and the losses would be too great if the projects were canceled. So yeah, 2025 will probably be an interesting year for PlayStation. We'll definitely get to see more of the story unfold. Beyond 2025, they also have games like Naughty Dog's Intergalactic. And although that didn't have a date attached to it in the reveal trailer, I promise you it isn't coming out this year. Same goes for Wolverine, although I do think we'll get a proper gameplay reveal this year from Wolverine. And even Bungie's Marathon is unlikely to release in 2025, although there could be a very slim chance. I do hope some smaller PlayStation drops surprise us this year too though, alongside the big ones like Ghost of Yotei. I don't know what Housemarque's been up to, or is it Housemarque? Whatever, the Returnal devs. I'd love a game from them even if it was just Returnal 2. And here's a little off the cuff, my official prediction for if a Returnal 2 ever does happen is that it'll be co-op right from the get-go and not introduce it later like the first game. Random Returnal bet. Anyway, that's everything for now. Thank you for watching. Do me a solid and please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, or even subscribe to the channel for more gaming talk every week. I appreciate it all, and until next time, I am Waifu Collector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I want to play some 2025 games. Goodbye.